going to talk today about taking advantage of free publicity, which I think is really exciting. And it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. And we all love it when we can do things that are free, right? So let's get started. Oh yeah, 2 computers is kind of difficult. All right, here we go. So what I'd like to do now is really quick. I'm going to show you guys some pictures. I want to know everybody that's in the room, kind of where you're at when you're thinking about publicity. So I'm going to show you some pictures. There's a letter in the corner. I want you to find the one that represents you the best and put it in the chat. Okay? So when you think about publicity, PR, media, all of that, does this represent you? Does this represent you? Does this represent you? Maybe this, or maybe this, right? One of them, sometimes it's more than one, but let's just kind of feel like, what are you really thinking about right now? We're going to get you back to that smiley face when we're done today, but I know that we're always in a lot of different places, so it's always kind of nice to know where you start, right? So let's kind of look at that. So who am I? Gina really pretty much told you who I was, and Gina would know since I've known Gina for many years now. Really, honestly, the only reason why these things are really important is just so that you really understand that I have done every single thing I'm going to show you today myself and successfully. But really, the most important thing here really is what I said, which is that I'm a people connector, and it is probably the way that I have built my business is by building relationships and nurturing them. And I always like to tell people, you already know the 10 people who will probably get you to where you want to go, right? And if you just nurture those relationships and just know how to ask the right questions, I think those are the 2 skills that you really need to know. But that's what you really need to know about me. What I want you to know about what we're going to talk about, though, is multimedia. So we're going to cover a lot of different ways. So if you see something or I talk about something and you're thinking to yourself, I don't know if I can really do that, that's okay, because I'm going to give you a lot of choices. And so just go on to a choice that works for you, because you don't have to do them all. You just have to find the ones that are right for you. But first, let's talk about what PR and publicity is not, because it's always good to know what it's not, right? So it's not guaranteed. It's not quick, it's not sales, and it's not advertising, which is what most of the time people think. PR, a lot of people think that PR stands for a press release. It actually stands for public relations, and relations is the most important part. It goes back to that relationship that we were talking about. PR plays a vital part in really your brand, right? It's really, really important about your brand. We're going to talk about that briefly because I think it's important, but it's really a part of your business strategy that should include marketing, branding, and of course, a customer experience that your customer knows that you are delivering to them superior, right? Better than anybody else. But together, those are the building blocks that will really build your business. So you can't do PR by itself. It won't do it for you. But if you combine that with branding and marketing and advertising, it is going to be vital to your overall business strategy. So here's what I always like to say. Publicity is what shapes your message, but media is what provides the megaphone. So really, that's why both things are. So a lot of times people are like, oh, because publicity is a lot of things that you're going to do. I'm going to talk to you today about both of them and how you can integrate them both. And sometimes it's so seamless that you won't even realize you've moved from one to the other. But shaping your message is important, but having that megaphone to get it out is actually really where the money is. So now let's talk about what is media, right? So here we talked about publicity, but what is media? So in essence, media is really the communication channels, which literally everything, news, entertainment, data, education is distributed. And it literally includes every broadcasting medium that has reach or influences people. So internet, magazine, newspapers, television, radio, all of those things are media outlets. So again, if there's one that you really love, great. If there's one you don't like, that's great too. You just need to know which one works for you so that you're comfortable in it. But if you can do a little bit of each one of them, That way, it's kind of like I always want to say, you know how everybody likes to either get a text or you like email or you want a phone call? We all have that preferred way that we like to communicate and be communicated to. It's kind of the same way. You're going to find your favorites. You're also going to find that within your industry, it may seem that certain industries prefer one versus the other as well. You may be in an industry that does a lot of reading articles. You may be in an industry that maybe your audience really wants to hear it in a podcast. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but you get to choose. But if you know what your brand is and you keep to your brand voice, you'll have a hit. Okay, so now talking about brand, I think it's really important. We're only going to talk about it for a second, but before you really go out there and start doing any type of PR or marketing even, you really need to know your brand. A lot of times people think that your brand is your logo and your font and the colors, and that is not. Those are your brand assets. Your brand, it isn't even what you think. It isn't even what you say. It's what your customer thinks, feel, say, and share. Right? We live in a world where it's really all about sharing, right? So that's what your brand is. It's also like, have you ever had anybody introduce you, or you're in a room at an event and they're talking to somebody else and they say, oh, you need to know such and such. And then they start saying about you and you're like, where'd they get that? Right? Like, you know, you're thinking, where did they get that information? Right? The thing is, that's what they thought your brand was. Right? So if somebody's introducing you or they're talking about you and it's not what you think it is, it's because you haven't done a very good job with your brand, right? So you need to make sure that you get really clear on your brand, what you want people to feel and say and think. And probably a way to think about it is, what do you want people to say about you when you're not in the room? That's kind of really what you want your brand to be. What is it that you want them to say about you if you weren't in the room? Think about that. That is your brand. So before you worry about publicity or media, make sure your brand is done, and then you can talk about brand strategy. So what's brand strategy opposed to brand? This is where you get to figure out who you are, what your story is, how to tell your story, so you go from told to sold. So that's what I always want people to remember. You want to tell your story in a way that you go from told to sold, and then you need to make sure that you stick to that story across everywhere, all your social media platforms, all your marketing platforms, all your media platforms. You need to make sure that you have a consistent brand. And so your strategy really needs to be in how you tell your story of who you are and how you go from told to sold. So if you just kind of think that in your mind, told to sold. And then the last thing I want to say about branding is you need to ensure that your content reflects your brand's voice. We used to live in a time where whenever people wanted to know, we just went to Google and typed in. You know, we used to go in there and we type in whatever we wanted and Google would tell us, right? But we live in a world right now where Google is the information. We're in the transformation business, and we're not the only one. Pinterest is not a social media platform. It's a visual search engine like Google. But the bottom line is that now, right now, 74% of all searches are done with voice. People go to their, I'm not going to say her name because she'll start talking, but now we ask questions to that. We talk to our phone, you know, we talk to whatever our voice activated devices, and we ask questions that way. But we're still doing all of our marketing and telling our story and our brand and everything like we're typing into Google. We need to use our voice like how people would really be talking in their phone to find you. So it's a new way to think about it. It's not just how does Google do SEO anymore. It's really about your brand and your voice. So make sure that your content of everything you're putting out has your brand's voice. Okay, so it's a crowded market. It's a crowded market out there. You have to be able to stop the scroll. There's a lot of noise. How are you going to stand out? And that's really what I'm going to talk about today. So with all of that, we're going to go in now. So I hope you guys are ready, because now we're going to get into the diving deep here. So first, I want to talk about tips to get free publicity locally. So first of all, if you want coverage like at a local business publication, you're going to find plenty of them. Go to Google, go into one of your talking devices and just say, because the Book a List celebration, corporate philanthropy, fastest growing companies, 40 under 40, these are all business publications that are local, and it's very, very easy to be able to utilize them. Just so that you know, at the very end, the very last thing I'm going to give you is a list of slides. I mean, excuse me, a list of resources of all the places to go to get everything. So we'll give you that at the end. That'll make it nice and easy for you. But just so you know, this is where you can locally go to lots and lots of publications. So here's my top 3 ways that I have gotten a lot of free publicity for myself as well as for my clients. So one of them, donate 1% of proceeds from your book or an event to a charity. There's a lot of charities that do a lot of events, right? Sports things, right? You know, breast cancer walks. There's a lot of things that you can do there, and you'll get local media for that. So whenever you're doing something to give back, you can get a lot of media for that. You can sponsor local events and piggyback on their media coverage. And my favorite way is to monitor the news and see where your area of expertise might fit with a reporter or a news outlet, and this is called newsjacking. So I have to tell you, newsjacking is one of my absolute favorite ways. And I'm going to give you a couple examples because people always ask me all the time, newsjacking. So some of the most famous ways have been, you may remember several years ago when the lights went out at the Super Bowl. Within 15 minutes, Oreo came out and said, it's okay, you can dunk in the dark, right? It was famous. They literally inserted their brand in that, right? You know, that was one. Another one that happened is when, I won't mention any names, when that airline had somebody bullied on their plane and they had to drag somebody off. Southwest came out and said, we beat up on prices, not our customers, right? So look for things that are happening. Now I'm going to give you an example of something I did for one of my clients, and I'm going to tell you how at least 3 of you that are here on the call could be doing this right now. So I had a client that is a financial advisor, and she lived in Florida, and that was when all the hurricanes were happening. And so every single time we would hear on the news or from a journalist, and I'm sure I want you to think about it. How many times do you hear a journalist and they say the same thing over and over? And you think, are we going to get any new information? They say the same thing over and over. That's because that's all the information they have. So that means somebody isn't giving them good information, and this is your job, right? To give them something else to say. So what we did was, while everybody was talking, every journalist was talking about how you needed to be prepared for an emergency, kind of like what's happening in California right now, right? You know, everybody's talking about the fires and everything. In this case, they were talking about hurricanes. And everybody was talking about how you needed to be, you know, planning for an emergency or how you might need to evacuate. So what I did is I started pitching my client to all of these news reporters on how, while everybody is worrying about that, why is nobody worrying about, you know, being prepared for a financial emergency, right? They're all prepared for this hurricane. Maybe they're all prepared for the fire, but why aren't they being prepared for a financial emergency? And that was a different hook. And we were able to insinuate her business. We got her on every single channel. And as a matter of fact, we actually got her all the way to Capitol Hill. So it's happening right now in California. What is happening in your business that you can insinuate in the news by twisting it a little way or giving a hook? For financial advisors, it's really easy. There's always all types of emergencies that are happening right now and stuff. And talking about how you can financially handle emergency is a really, really easy way to newsjack. But just think about what can you do to newsjack and put your brand in the news. And you can do this actually locally or nationally. So here's a few. Here's what some of the things you want to do. Do something different. If you do something different, I have to tell you, journalists here average all day long. Pitch, 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 and it's just average stuff. Do something different, they want to talk about it. Another way is win an award. If you win an award, believe me, coverage of awards is every press staple, right? Every newspaper, every magazine is going to pick up somebody who's won an award, right? And it's not that hard to get an award. And you can do that locally again or nationally, but it is easy to get written up for that. Use your inventory. Now, I'm going to tell you a story about a real estate agent. I know personally that Gina has done this. It was a story that she had shared with me about her gallery. So I know Gina has done it. So use the inventory that you have. So a real estate brokerage, they can offer their office space, their luxury brands to host parties, magazines, spreads, all this type of stuff. And in exchange, they just get press mentions, right? This is how you get press or party invites, right? Which really can allow for the ultimate networking event. I have to tell you here's one of the ways that I have used inventory. We're always looking for places to have photo shoots for our pictures. Here's a great way to do it. If you know a real estate agent, and who doesn't know 1 or 10, real estate agent who can get you into model homes or into those luxury homes, I have to tell you, one of the things I've done for my clients is get them to be able to go into the models before the models open in those beautiful, beautiful model homes. And you're not doing anything to dirty it. You're just putting up a camera and a tripod, and they've taken all kinds of photo shoots for all of their videos in those model homes. Great way to be able to get free publicity there. All you have to do is tell the realtor who got you in there that you're going to give her some type of credit. I've got my clients to go to some $1 million homes, right, that are for sale, and they'll let us come in and film there. So if you know somebody who does that, it is a great opportunity for you to be able to use that to get free publicity. And then all you have to do is mention who it is that allowed you to do it. So you don't have to pay to go stay in a studio. You don't have to pay to get all these fancy places, figure out how you're going to get pictures. Call up your local realtor, because she's going to know somebody who can get you in. It's a great relationship to build. So now let's talk about how you can do it nationally. So on a national level, write articles about influencers or influential blogs. I have to tell you, there's a whole website that does these top 10 this, top 10 this. If you write an article and you pull in people who are top of their game in your industry, and you mention them, and you let them know that not only did you mention them, but you actually mentioned and positioned them in a way that they are at top of their game, believe me, they're going to share it on all their social media. They're going to, maybe put a link back, because they're going to want to be able to utilize that. But being associated with somebody who's at a very high level in your industry can really help you, and you will get multiple. I mean, I've had my clients get hundreds and hundreds of thousands of shares for something by just talking about great things that other people are doing in their industry. This is a great way for you to be able to get free publicity. Okay, so another way that you can do it is you can leverage a calendar of events and determine which ones you can tie your business to make your story relevant to the media. And there's a couple ways to do it. Locally, we'll go there first. Locally, you probably have lots of event calendars, directories in your town that you can look up and find out what is happening, right? And then figure out, again, like newsjacking, figure out how can you tie your brand to that story and make it interesting to the media. This is a great way, if you're a speaker, to be able to do it on a national level too. Right now, we're all speaking virtually, right? We're not all traveling. Normally I'm out of the country traveling. I don't always get to do virtual speaking. Now we are, because we're not traveling. But guess what? There are all kinds of organizations. There's your organization, there's eWomen, there's NABO, there's ABWA. There's all type of organizations that usually only bring in speakers who belong to that organization. But now you can just go to NABO, which is National Association of Women Business Owners, if you didn't know. You can go to NABO and look at their national one, and then go to all the cities. So find cities that are by you or national, whichever you want, and you just look at their event tab, and you will see all the type of people that they're having speak, and you can put in to speak there. 2 weeks ago on Monday, I was in Philadelphia. On Tuesday, I was in New Mexico. On Wednesday, I was in New Jersey. And I was speaking at organizations I didn't even belong to, because they all need speakers with your area of expertise. When I was in New Jersey, I was in front of 120 people. It was fabulous. So you never know. All you have to do is find them. Also, if you're looking for speakers and you want to know, maybe you have a podcast, going to find out who is speaking at some of those other organizations and then asking them to come speak for you. I get a lot of people booked on my podcast for that. And then they refer me to other ones. Is that 5 minutes?
No, no, no.
Oh.
I just wanted to say, I was on your podcast. I listened back to it the other day and I was just shocked. It was so good. You were a great host. Our banter back and forth was good. The information was awesome. But when you said you were in front of those people and all those, you're talking about virtually still, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now they're looking for virtual speakers, right? And you can just speak and I didn't know any of the people that were there. I just went and they have a person who books their speakers and I just reached out to them. That's a great way, but also it's a great way to see what other experts they have that are in your industry, or more importantly, who are a good strategic partner or power partner for you, right? That's really a good way to be able to do that. But with that said, I use a lot of media presence to do that because I am talking about them and talking about, I will literally take like 15 minutes, go find these organizations, find out who's speaking at theirs, and I will literally post something on social media that says something like, oh, I sure wish I lived in New Mexico. That's how I got booked in New Mexico. I would love to hear this girl. She's talking, you know, about, she was actually talking about media. I would really love to hear her. She reached out to me. I had her on my podcast, and then they asked me if I would come and speak in New Mexico too, virtually. So it's really a good way to be able to do that and to talk about it on media, social media, and it's a good way locally as well. So here, magazines and blogs. There are so many magazines and blogs out there right now. This is really a good time to reach out to them, be guest blogging on other people's blogs. It's a good way to be in magazines. I know that I mentioned earlier that, you know, and Gina did that. I am the publisher of a magazine, Marketing Media Money, of which Gina is a columnist for my magazine. So, and I think last month you guys had Tamara Burkett speak, and so is she. But in this case, I reached out to the media because they were looking for people to interview in this magazine. This magazine is not my magazine. It was called the Podcast Magazine. They went and listened to my podcast and literally wrote this, gave me 5 mics. I think that was kind of interesting, 5 mics. And pretty much at the end actually said that they consider my podcast binge-worthy. So literally this all happened just because I had built a relationship with somebody who did media. So it's really important to really build those relationships. So when they're looking for someone, they contact you and say, oh, Patty, I need this. Do you know somebody, or can you talk about this? Can you talk about that? I've been quoted in books and gotten my clients quoted in books or whatever, because they just want one little quote. And it's a great way to get a Wikipedia page too, because you have to have had other people write about you to get a Wikipedia page. So this right here happened just because I knew somebody. I had nurtured that relationship with that media person. And so that's how that happened. So now let's talk about stages and sponsorships. So whether those stages are in person or whether those stages are virtual, and sponsorships, they're a great way to leverage your time, your money, resources, and the media, right? You can be using stages, virtual stages, sponsoring. What I like to do is I like to look for events that have sponsors and look and see who the other sponsors are. A lot of times the other sponsors are media, right? And what you want to do is you want to piggyback on that and become a sponsor for something that already has some type of media presence as a sponsor, because now you get to sponsor, and the media, because they're a sponsor, they're going to be all over that event. And now you get to become a sponsor too. You don't even have to be there. They even have things like no-show ones. And also that's how they get more sponsors. You know, a lot of times I've had Lexus sponsor my events. They never show up. They always let me use their car. But as soon as I say my sponsor is Lexus, it's really easy for me to go out and get other sponsors, right? You know, so you just want to know that they know that they're going to be sharing. They're going to be talking about it. When I moved, couple of years ago, when I moved out of town and away from Dallas for 18 months, I did an event. I didn't know one person in that town. I literally hit up every single media outlet. And instead of having a networking mixer, we had a media mixer, and I had somebody from every media channel there. And it was really, really great. And we did all these Facebook Lives direct at the event with the media people. And we got everybody, all kinds of media. Really easy. Believe me, they want to come to events. They want to come to things because they really need things to talk about. You just have to figure out how you are going to spin it. It's like, Publicity is all about shaping your message, but the media is the megaphone, right? So stick to your brand, know what a hook is, know what twist you're going to give, right? Kind of like how I was talking about that financial advisor. Figure out how you're going to make a story make sense, and they want that. I'm also going to tell you that on social media, 90% of all media journalists are on Twitter. That's where they hang out. That's where you should be. That's where they are. And share their stuff. Have a conversation with them there. They don't have time all day to be on social media, but they are on Twitter. The thing you have to know is you want to build a relationship with them. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that, many, but that's really what's important. But you really want to leverage your time and your money and your resources and the media. Build relationships and do things where you're going to be, where the media is going to be. Go to every single media outlet you have in your town, and their station has an event page, and find out where are they going to be and figure out how you're going to get there. That's where you want to be, where the media is going to be, right? And sometimes they'll say, oh, they're sponsoring this. Sometimes they do like walks, you know, like 10K type of things, and they'll be sponsoring those. And then so you want to sponsor those. Like wherever you're going to be, where the media is going to be, that's where you want to be. So one of the best ways that you can take advantage of publicity and to leverage your area of expertise is by being a featured guest on podcasts. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this right now because I want to talk to you about how you're really going to be able to utilize this. So here's a couple things. So hopefully some of you have been guests on podcasts. Here's some of the best ways to get on a podcast if you've never been on one, or if there's somebody specific in your industry that you want to be on their podcast, here's how you get known. And these things work from both sides of the mic, whether you're the host or whether you're the guest. So here's some of the things that I have used for myself and for my clients. So if there's a podcast that I want to be on, here's a great way to find really good top podcasts. So I'll just give you one example. You can go to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and you want to be able to go into whatever your industry is. So for example, my industry is marketing. I go in and search marketing and all the top ones come up. So go in and put whatever your industry is, and all the top ones, according to iTunes, are going to come up. And all you have to do is click on each one of them to go to that page, and you'll get all the contact information that you need to get a hold of that person. So if you want to be on that podcast, pitching them like that is not going to do it for you. So let me just tell you, here's how you're going to do it. That's why I'm telling you it's not quick. So here's some of the ways you can do it. First of all, do your due diligence and do your work and find out what their podcast is about by listening to it. I can't even tell you how many people pitch podcasts they haven't even listened. Listen to the podcast so you're clear, because guess what? Sometimes people have podcasts and they don't actually have guests on them. So what does that say about you if you go pitch somebody for a podcast and they don't even have guests, right? 2, look and see when their last podcast was. A podcast could have been out and they haven't done a podcast in 3 months. You probably wouldn't want to pitch them either. But once you listen and you establish that this is a good and you understand the format, you want to like it, subscribe to it if it's in your industry and it makes sense, but leave them a review. Then once you leave them a review, here's the 3 things that I do. I leave them a review. I send them, if I'm not already connected to them on LinkedIn, I connect to them, and in the note that I send, I tell them, I really like your podcast. These are the episodes that I listened to. I thought you did really great. I say something genuine that I really liked about it so they know I really did. And then I say, and I left you a 5-star review. Well, now they're going to go check you out right there. Now you are already heads above the rest right there. The second thing I do, and they get that notification, the second thing I do is I go and look on Facebook and see if they have a Facebook business page for that podcast. And if they do, I leave them a 5-star review on their business page, which they also get notified on. Once I become a guest, and I've been on there, once I'm done and it goes live, then I go to LinkedIn, I leave them a recommendation, an actual recommendation that says that how great their podcast was, how much I enjoyed being on it, what a great interviewer they were. These are things that set you apart. But here's what it also does. Other people that are looking at those reviews or those LinkedIn recommendations are going to go, man, I want this girl to come on my podcast. Look at this stuff she does, right? That is going to really make it so people want to have you on their podcast. Here's a couple other things. Don't be one of those people that just when you're on a podcast, get on Facebook and say, oh, I'm so excited to be on XYZ's podcast, which is pretty much what about 60% of the people do, right? Don't do that. What you really want to do is stand out. It's always about standing out. Remember when I talked about being different? So here's one of the secret things that I do. That's my secret ninja tip is once you're on it, now you're promoting it because it's about you, right? So you're going to promote it. You're hoping people are going to see it. You know, you're driving everything to it. That's really great. The podcast world, for as many as there are, it is a small enough world that we do talk to each other. Also, anybody that's in my industry, I'm also paying attention to who's guests on their podcast too. I'm paying attention to that because I might want them to come on and be a guest on my podcast, right? So here's one of the things that I do. I always like to say the best way you can promote yourself is by promoting others. Promote others to promote yourself. How you do it is you lead with contribution and compensation will follow. That is my mission, is really my motto is lead with contribution, compensation will follow. And here's how I do it. So say I'm on somebody's podcast and I'm episode 50. So after I spend a week or so talking about how great it was to be on that podcast and how wonderful they were and all that kind of stuff, the next week, what I do is I go look at the episode page on number 50 and I see who is number 48 and who is number 49 and who is number 51 and who is number 52. So who came right before me and who came right after me. And if it's appropriate, right, I promote those podcasts. I don't even know that person. I promote that podcast. I talk about that podcast. I tag them in my social media posts because guess what? Everybody who sees that, me talking about other people, and they go and look at it, I'm sandwiched right between those podcasts. There's no way they can see their podcast that I'm promoting without seeing that I was a guest too. So this is how instead of saying me, go listen to my on that podcast, I'm talking about other people. When you're speaking on a summit or doing anything, promote the other people, all roads lead back. I do this in my magazine too. Right? You know, 15 people write articles in my magazine. You're one person. How many times can you say, read my article? But if you promote the other 14 people, it's the same magazine, right? So think about everything you're involved in this organization, everything somebody else, one of the other members do, promote them. It makes you look good. Always be promoting others to make yourself look good. There's a lot of ways that you can actually do it, especially in media. So whether it is using, so if somebody does do a press release, you know, people say, oh, press releases are dead. Press releases aren't dead. It's just that if you just write a press release in itself, it's not going to do anything. You have to get it on the media. You got to leverage it to the media so it gets picked up. That's how it's going to work, right? So whenever you see anybody doing that, so if somebody that you know, maybe you know in this organization you belong to, if you do, and they put out a press release or they talk about something they do, really honestly, you want to be talking about how great they are, how wonderful they are, because when that press release gets picked up in other places, they're going to be looking for comments that are talking about it, and then you get picked up too. So you always want to do that. Being on a podcast, you rarely, really get free publicity on your area of expertise. Make sure that you are always talking to podcasts where the audience is really your audience, right? Where your ideal audience is. I'm in marketing and I speak on a lot of other marketing ones, and I have a lot of marketing people on mine too, because we're talking about different perspectives, but you got to be able to talk about, again, know your brand. What's the thing you're going to talk to them about so that you're telling them how your business, what you do differently, what your differentiator is, can actually support something that they do.
Patty, I'm so glad you shared that. I want to let you know, did you see my 5-minute postcard here? And
okay.
We're trying to educate our organization because a lot of people think liking is, it will go everywhere, but that's not true. If you write just a reply, that doesn't doesn't go anywhere. But if you hit share and share it out into your personal world, that's what we're trying to teach our membership to start doing.
And give your point of view.
More and more. Yes.
Because that's what makes you an authority. Right? Not just an expert. What makes you an authority was when you have the power to influence others, specifically in a purchasing decision. But what you really want is if somebody does something, you want to be able to say, oh, and I love the way she did this, and then give your area of expertise, right? Because that really works. It's not just enough to be able to do anything. It's nice that you like. A like really only lets them know that you liked it. Doesn't actually really help them. Write something, even if you just write something that says truth, I agree, 100%, whatever. Facebook loves that, but sharing is really where it's at. And it also really makes you look like a giver too. Reciprocity works. I'm glad you told me it was 5 minutes, so thanks. Okay, we're almost done though. So socialize to monetize. Now we're at
3 minutes, sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna go faster. Socialize to monetize. Keep thinking that. Socialize to monetize. This is really all about making sure you share, share, share. So that was a good segue into that. Share, share, share is not just enough to post. Share, share, share. Find out who your best media people are. Share, share, share. Go to Twitter, find out the journalists that you want to know. Share, share, share. Socialize to monetize. Here's the last media tip I really want to tell you. If you get nothing else, get this. If you're an expert in your field, reach out to journalists, begin building that relationship now. So then you become a trusted advisor, and when they need something, they'll come to you. Pitching them in the middle of the emergency, they don't have time right then. Build a relationship with them before that happens so that they can come to you. Give me a quick quote on this, Gina. Can you talk to Patty about this? Can you talk about 5 minutes on this? If I get you on the air, could you come down to the studio? This happens because you're a trusted advisor. Start working on that right now. Here's that resources. This is pretty much this. If you have phones, I take your phone out and take a picture of this slide right now. I can also give it to anybody if they want it, but this is really all the resources of how to connect with journalists right here and all the websites. So this right here is probably the gold right here. Hope everybody did it. I can make sure Gina gets it if you don't. And then really honestly, what I want to be able to say as I wrap up is if anything I said here, like you're thinking, oh, what's the strategy I would use in my business? No problem. Go to connectwithpatty.com and book a call with me, no cost, and we can talk about it. So that's what I would say there. So that's easy to remember, connectwithpatty.com. And here is literally how you can contact me. Here's how we can connect.
All right, hey there, nerdpreneurs. Welcome back to Market Like a Nerd, and get ready to geek out with me because today I'm joined by networking expert Patty Farmer. Whoop whoop! Hey, Patty.
Hey.
Welcome to
excited to be here.
Yeah, welcome to Nerdpreneur Nation.
This is fabulous. I've been so excited and waiting to be here. I love it. I love your Facebook group. So excited to be on the show.
Oh, thank you. Well, we are stoked to have you too. Now, for everyone who's listening, today we're going to be talking about how Patty turned 100,000 connections into $100,000. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Patty, and then we'll talk about her tips for monetizing your networking efforts. Patty Farmer is an international speaker, radio host, event producer, and best-selling author specializing in marketing and business growth strategies through coaching, mentorship, and consulting. Patty has created a network of 100,000 plus connections while teaching thousands of entrepreneurs, coaches, speakers, and authors to connect, collaborate, and convert in less time and make more money while designing the lifestyle they want to live. Patty believes we all have a message, and her mission is to help them master, market, and monetize that message in a way that creates transformation for both them and their clients.
So here's the deal first. So first of all, you got to know, I moved to a new town, right? I don't know anybody, like 0 people. So I did what I think most people would do. I kind of had a pity party, right? Had a pity party. And then I was like, Patty, but then here's the OCD, right? Then I thought, wait a second. I'm not B2B. I'm not B2C. I'm in the people business, and I'm in a brand new town and I don't know anybody. So really the first tip really was to identify that opportunity, right? I moved to a new city, right? And I tell people all the time, look to the person next, right, across from you. Are they a B or a C? Of course not. They're a people, right? They're a person.
Yeah.
Right? So we're in the people to people business. So in that moment when I realized, wow, here I am in the Dallas Metroplex of millions, I thought, wow, Patty, this is really an opportunity. So I had to change my thinking a little bit to have a shift like we sometimes do. So I just picked my big girl panties on. I stood up and I said, okay. And the funny thing is I walked to my refrigerator and I wrote 100,000 on my refrigerator. And my husband came home and he's like, what's this? And I said, I made the decision, which is the second tip. You have to make the decision. And so the decision was that I would meet 100,000 people and I would make $100,000. My husband was like, I love that goal. So that was really the first thing. And we know that's in a lot of goals, right? A lot of things that people do. The first thing is always making the decision. So the tip 3 is make a plan. Right, so you make the goal, but now I had to make the plan. Like, how was I going to do that? So the first thing I had to do was to do my research. I'm in a new town, right? Do my research. So where should I network? Who are the movers and shakers? We all know that's what it's about, right? Who were the right people? Because how many of us, when you think about it, when they think of networking, old school networking is, oh, it all happens over a cup of coffee. But here's the reality. Amanda, the reality is how many of us have gone and had coffee with someone and walked out and thought, now there's 2 hours of my life I'll never get back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it happens all the time. But I think the reason it happens is because they didn't qualify them first.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's all about income producing activities. One of the things I always like to say in today's business environment, relationships are the currency. But with that said, how fat is your wallet?
Yeah.
Right?
And
I mean, you really need to think about it. Are they the right people? Because you can waste a lot of time by networking with the wrong people. You don't even know yet whether they are the right people or not. And I think that really comes down to asking better questions. But you know, and I know that even in social media and everything, it's not about the number. I mean, I specialize in list building. It's not the number, it's the engagement, right? I mean, I've taken clients that had a list of 700 and had to make multiple 6 figures. So it's all about how much engagement there is. And that's where that people connecting really comes down to that. And as a matter of fact, I like to say all the time that the only difference between a contact and a contract is the R, and the R stands for relationships. Always it comes back to where are the relationships. So you have to be building the relationships. And in today's environment as well, word of mouth is just as important as word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
so
I think that going back to that tip, same tip, number 3, who in town are the movers and shakers? So you have to know that. Where should I hang out? What functions should I go to? Who's there? I mean, we have so much data now that we can draw from. I mean, you go to Eventbrite, it tells you who else is attending, right? You go to Meetup, you can see who else is attending. Do your work, right? Find out, are these your people? Is it your audience? Should you be there? Where should you be? So that was a really, really big thing for me. And who were the influencers? And how should I connect with them? So that was a big, big, huge thing. So I was in Dallas, and again, it's a big city, right? So I used Meetup, I used Eventbrite, I used Google, right? It wasn't that hard to find them, and then find them on social media, and then really look. But here's the number one thing that I think people really need to do is let the people you connect to connect you. It's kind of like connect the dots. Every single person I met and I had a conversation with, if I walked away in that conversation and thought to myself, wow, this was a powerful conversation, rather than going and finding somebody else, the last question I would ask them is, so where's the best places you find to network where you get the best results? And could you tell me the next 3 people I should connect to? And I just let them tell me. And they would just say, oh, well, you need to connect to, you know, A, B, and C. And then I say, would you be willing to do an intro? And they say, oh, of course I would. And that way, then the next 3 people led me to the next 3 people, which led me to the next 3 people, right?
that's so easy.
Always.
Yeah.
You know, really, honestly, always is much easier than we think, but it's always really, really important to me. And then I will give you this tip that really worked for me. And this was it. Confirm your appointments before you meet somebody, but don't just confirm them. Most people do that. Here's my secret tip.
Ooh.
I have a 100% success rate on this one tip. And here's why. So when I am confirming, and I actually have this script too, so if anybody wants it, but what I do is when I'm confirming, so say we're going to meet on Friday, I would send them an email and I'd say, I just want to confirm that we're going to meet Friday at XYZ. And then I would say, when you write back and confirm that for me, will you do me a favor and tell me who are the top 3 people you would really love to meet and who are really great strategic partners for you? And here's the secret sauce. So that way I have a chance to look through my database. And if I know them, I'll bring them with me when we meet. Well, here's the screening process right now. So what should happen, right? Reciprocity. When they write back, they should also say, oh, could you do the same for me?
Yeah.
So now when you're meeting, you're getting past the what's the name of your dog and how many kids you have and all these other things, which are relationship building. And once we do know that we could do something together, I do want to know those things. But until we make the decision that we even have synergy anywhere, is that the most important thing? The most important thing is, how can I serve you? Actually, I do the same thing for virtual. My number one goal for myself every single day is to pass out 5 business cards that aren't mine.
Oh, look at you.
There you go. 5 business cards that are not mine, virtually or in person. That's my personal goal every single day. So, okay, so now thinking about asking that question. So you know they're going to show up now. Now I'm going to tell you, here's a question sometimes people ask me, so I'm just going to address it to the elephant in the room. Well, what if you meet them and you're not so impressed, right? Well, here's the answer. You told them that you would go through your database and you would bring them with you if you had them, but they don't know whether you did or not. So if you meet them and after you're there, you're like, well, I'm not really sure that I want to do it, then don't. Like, you know what I mean? They don't know whether you did or didn't, right? So it really, that power really still is with you in case maybe you meet them and they're like, little bit flaky, maybe I don't want to introduce them to my people. That's okay. But the fact of the matter is you served them before, you did the work, because sometimes you have a meeting virtual or in person, and then what happens after that? They say, oh, well, that was really great information. I'll do some intros for you, or I'll do this. And then you're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, right? Crickets. So this way you've actually done the work up front. So you're a little bit more proactive, and I really like being proactive.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 4 is serve first. I always want to make sure that I serve first. So what is the best way that I can serve them? And a lot of times I will ask them. And the thing that I just told you is one of the ways that I do that. But even when I'm doing it virtually or I have conversations with people, that's always one of the questions I ask is, how can I best serve you? And because I'm a business strategist, it's really like, not only do I want to serve you, I want to serve you in the most strategic way I can. And we can assume all we want, but why wouldn't we just ask?
Yeah.
How can I serve you and do it in the most strategic way? And so that really works for me as far as, you know, who do I want to meet and what can I do for you and what are you looking for? And then they'll usually ask you, well, how can I serve you? Because here's what I believe. I believe that if you lead with contribution, compensation will follow. I believe that's so true, don't you? I mean, really, lead with contribution, compensation will follow. That's all in the follow-up, right? But at the beginning, you always serve first, and then it will lead to everything else. So the last thing is, once you have made the connection, now you've tried to find synergy, right? So now it's really all about taking that conversation and turning it into cash. So once you ask them, you know, who do they serve, and you find out who they serve, the most important question that I want to know, and here's a question I ask them, so these are my most important questions, are this: I know a lot of people, and if I was going to tell them about you, what would you want me to tell them? And really what that does is it really enables them to tell me what's the value they bring to the marketplace, right? Not the fluff. What is the value? You want me to tell a lot of people about you? What do you want me to tell them? So if I know who they serve, how I can serve them, and what the value they bring to the marketplace, that's a really strong conversation that tells me what the next step should be. And it opens up the conversation for how we can collaborate. Where's the synergy? Is there something we can do together? And is there a revenue producing activity we can do together? And that's really what I'm looking for. I get a lot of people that hit that tab too, but I love it because they're providing me the information that I need. So when I get back with them, I already have time to check them out, see, you know, what it is I think that how they're showing up in the marketplace, and that tells me what I need to do before I even get on the phone.
So was a lot of the $100,000 that you made off of the 100,000 connections a JV type of thing that you guys did together?
some of it, but most of it was that once they saw how much I served, like how I really led with that contribution, really wasn't even making an offer or selling. It was really an invitation to really continue to work. How can we work together? And I get asked that question so much. I have to tell you, I really don't have this. I was like, well, Patty, how can we work together? What does that look like? You know, I want to do something with you. And it's really just finding the thing, right? What is the thing? But I think that if you do this work up front and provide value, if they're getting that much value at no cost, then the next step for them is, wow, if I got all of this and I didn't even pay you a dime, how much value would I get if I wrote you a check?
Yeah. How do you let go of your attachment to the outcome and the attachment to the money? Like, I imagine for some people, it's a little hard to be like, all right, I'm just going to focus on serving and the money is going to come. How do you handle those fears?
So here's something really interesting for me. What I do is this conversation that I'm having with someone is a very small amount of time. I always have it on the phone first before I meet anybody in person, and it's very, very short. So I already know a lot of information in a brief amount of time, right? And so I'm sure you get this too, you know, the whole pick your brain, can we go have coffee? I'd love to run this by you, that kind of stuff. And pretty much my answer for that is, and I had to not be attached to this and not take it personally, but pretty much my answer to that is, I'll tell you what I'll do. You can ask me anything you want for 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, we go on the clock. Fair enough? And they'll always go, okay. And I'm going to tell you, they either write a check then, or believe me, they're done in 10 minutes. Ask me what you want for 10 minutes. I am never so busy. I don't have 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But after that, then you're renting my brain, right?
And they're going to go and take that extra step to look you up online. Can you make it a little easier on them? Where can they find you, or what's the gift that you have for us today?
Thank you so much for asking. So they can just go make it nice and simple. It's pattyfarmer.com. Patty's with a Y. So pattyfarmer.com. I do have a gift there for them. It's the 6-figure biz quiz, and it will literally in less than 4 minutes tell them everything they need to know, where they're excelling, where they need some help, and how they can have massive growth this year.
Ooh, I like it. 6-figure biz quiz. That sounds so fun.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yay!